2/3 of class time on actual teaching, and that a class on average consists of 41 learners. The Talis report covers about 260,000 teachers in 15,000 schools across 48 countries and economies. 48 countries participated in the survey, with South Africa being the only one from Africa. The minister added that she's pleased to see that South Africa scored very high, though, in teaching diverse groups. And to help us unpack the Talis report, which was released on Tuesday, we're now joined from our Pretoria studio by Professor Percy Sepemg, who's an education expert and also the head of Maths, Science and Business at the Tshwane University of Technology. Thanks very much indeed for joining us, Prof. Welcome to the program. So this Talis report was a talking point during the course of the week. The minister said that she was grateful that they were invited to be part of this study because it helped illuminate some of the things that she already knew. I wonder what your thoughts were on the results and what came through in the report.
Thank you, Peter, and then thanks very much to the listeners. I think what stood out for me in terms of the, measuring the quality of teaching and learning in our schools is that you'd find that normally we tend to perhaps forget to outline in terms of South African context what constitute teaching and learning. But I'm glad that the report, especially the summary for South Africa, it has indicated and demonstrated that although we, failing well in terms of other issues such as social issues in the teaching and learning of various or different learning areas in South Africa, mostly what we need to concern ourselves is what constitutes quality within the context of South Africa, but then also look at other issues that are outside of academic factors, especially that contributes towards success rate or academic achievement of learners. Also, in terms of strategic positioning of the policy in South Africa, especially at the basic education sector, we want to also recognize that we haven't done much as institutions of higher learning in terms of producing teachers that we may, perhaps in terms of benchmark, be at the same level as those that are produced elsewhere in the economic countries, especially the member countries within the OECD.
All right. Well, let's chat a little bit about two of the things that you mentioned. First one is the quality. The minister says that education in South Africa is on the rise, albeit we still have a fragile system that needs to be nurtured and addressed. Do you buy into that? Do you believe her when she says that education is on the rise in the country?
Well, partly we can say yes, Peter, because if you look at the South African Council for Educators, some 10, 11 years ago, we conceptualized what we call continuing teacher professional development framework, where we have different cycles in terms of, in a way, or as a way of not only compliance but also teacher professional development, have our teachers to accumulate professional development points as a way of rewarding them to, participate in what we call ongoing or lifelong teacher professional development initiatives. So the Minister of Basic Education might be correct to say, yes, there are pockets of excellence, there are pockets of growth in terms of, looking at quality, but not only that, be in the position to come up with various tools that will allow us to monitor and evaluate the extent or the magnitude of success. But of course, there are shortcomings within the sector. And then one of those, I think, is the issue of minimum requirements for teacher education, where various, institutions in the country, especially faculties of education or schools of education in different institutions, offer different quality in terms of the bachelor degree. But then also to say that looking at the number of under and unqualified teachers in South Africa to date in terms of the report, we know now that almost 2 in 5 teachers that you meet on the street, chances are that 2 of them won't be in the position to say they are qualified to be teaching in our schools. But then also, Peter, the other problem that I've realized and observed through the years is that majority of our teachers in schools, especially in primary schools, they don't specialize. And then most of them only possess what you call professional qualifications. But as compared to other countries, especially within this report, you will find that, in countries like Korea, Australia, almost or at least 70% of those teachers in schools, they have what you call a minimum academic degree, where they can engage in what we call inquiry or research initiatives in their classroom, so that they can continue to measure the extent at which they achieve, but then also to measure the extent at which they produce quality in basic schooling.
So how do we get the right quality of teacher coming into the system? We hear from the report only half of the people actually really want to teach. The rest just need a job. So that's part of the problem, but also to make sure that we have a high standard of teacher. How do we fix this? I mean, I remember there was a time we had dedicated teacher training colleges, and they seem to have disappeared.
Yes, I mean, I think immediately after the closure of colleges of education, where some of us were, graduated from, I think the government forgot to, incorporate what we call experiential learning, because the amount of time that our initial student educators spend in schools, I think it is proportionally very low as compared to other countries. But then also what we need to do is to have an overhaul of the curriculum within the Bachelor of Education, but then also to say that those teacher educators in universities, they should also be in the position to undergo what we call continuing professional development. I'm saying this, Peter, because if you go to one institution and then also move to another institution, you will see that the nature of the curriculum that is offered in one institution as compared to other is completely different in terms of the level of difficulty, but then also in terms of the cognitive demand. So what needs to be done by the institutions at this moment is to also try to say, what is it that the country needs, or what is it that the basic education sector needs in terms of the teachers that needs to be produced. Majority of our teachers now, they enter into this profession not only because they want to make a contribution to the little ones, but then also to the communities around them. But because of high unemployment rates, you'll find that majority of those who graduate with their BSc, pure maths or chemistry or physics, they tend to go through what we call PGCE, that is postgraduate certificate in education, so that they can qualify to be educators, but most importantly, they can access a job. Right. So for me, I think it is a matter of saying continuously review the curriculum, but then also make sure that excluding issues of politics and unions within the initial teacher education, I think that will help us.
Do you think that paying our teachers better will help, A, to attract the right kind of teachers, and also to retain them? Because many teachers teach for a while until they get a better job, inverted commas.
Yes, Peter. I think we're losing a huge pool and a huge cohort of, specialized teachers with scarce skill subjects to other countries like China, Australia, and then even UK. So I think in terms of benchmarking the salaries of our teachers, I think that will go, to some extent in terms of helping us not only to get students who, didn't, obtain, certain grades, so that we can have even those who have distinctions from school level. So I think I agree with you, Peter. I think the department also, and the government also needs to really look in terms of economic factors that affect our teachers, but then also look at the inflation rate as compared to what our teachers get currently.
All right, the other side of this equation about what's happening in the teaching and learning process is that it was seen that our schools are experiencing higher levels than their counterparts of disruption and violence. I mean, if I'm thinking about a profession and I read stories about teachers being attacked, about this kind of violence, it might put me off getting into the profession. How do we fix this problem that seems to be escalating of violence in schools, whether it's students on students, students on teachers, teachers on students? It just seems to be something we see more and more often.
Yeah, Peter, in some countries you'll find that the ministries of education engage in what we call family literacies. Now, as a mathematician or a mathematics teacher, I remember I also, participated in what we call family mathematics. Now, these are caused by high inequalities that we have in the country, in communities, but then also the literacies of various households where these kids are coming from. I think our communities are very angry at this moment due to various inequalities that we experienced every day or on daily basis. So I think the department and the government can also conceptualize and implement various programs, community engagement projects, where universities also contribute massively in terms of improving our literacy levels. Because once we educate our society and the communities, we should be in the position to teach them and to raise awareness in terms of not only protecting but also respecting our key strategic elements and infrastructure like schools.
Right.
Now, the issue of bullying and safety in schools, I think it's really unfortunate, and I think our curriculum should also be in the position to incorporate and also integrate the issues of teaching values, in schools. But then also within the department side, they need to also raise the level of security in terms of protecting our schools and our teachers. Otherwise, we are going to have a problem, especially given that about 30% of our educators currently in the system are above 50. And we should be in the position to say in the next decade, how do we attract, intellectual young people to come into the profession so that we can close this gap in terms of the teaching workforce.
All right, so Professor Sepemg, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks very much indeed. It's a subject we can talk for a great length, but unfortunately time's not on our side.
Peter.
But thanks for your insights. All right, so that was Professor Percy Sepemg, an education expert, speaking about the state of education in South Africa, particularly following the Talis report that was released earlier this week that pointed to some issues that we still need to address here in South Africa.